What about if sorry, Secretary of State, we're running out of time. You were a little late to us. What about if they smell? The bill states that rough sleepers might be considered a nuisance if there's an excessive smell. So if you smell, you might be arrested.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing, as I say, is to make sure we help people off the streets. No, I'm not saying it's funny, and I'm saying the most important thing is to help people off the streets.
You're not helping them off the streets, though. I've just done another video, and it ended up going on ages, and I only actually started watching this video because of it's meant to be talking about homeless people, right? And ended up talking about loads of other things to do with Los Angeles as well. What Robert F. Kennedy Jr. found out about Los Angeles in their homeless problems. I have just tried to watch this video, right? And the battery went on my other phone, and then the internet connection went off on this one. I got really annoyed, and then when I tried to watch this video to carry on watching where it had left off from, I was forced to watch Domino's Pizza adverts, which I got infuriated with. Then I had to close the window, reopening it, try to get rid of these adverts, right? Close it, open it. It's infuriating. I have to put up with that because this Tory government think that that's lawful. They think that it's lawful for that. I don't care whether I get YouTube for free or not. It's conditioning. And what it's doing is it's distressing me. And it's making my consciousness, it's turning me into a nasty person. Right? All I'm doing is swearing and shouting at the phone, right? Now, it doesn't matter whether YouTube's free or not, right? The government could take possession of YouTube through compulsory purchase, right? And it could make it public and not have adverts on, right? It's free, right? Consent, submit, accept. There's obedience again. Consent, submit, accept, obedience, right? Okay, I'll agree. But when I'm agreeing, it's upsetting me. What the YouTube is putting me through is driving me nuts. I don't like the treatment. I'm being treated away by the platform that have made me consent to accept to its terms. It's actually transforming me into a nasty person, right? Because I don't have to put up with it, but it's also it's encouraging and provoking me into these behaviours with other things that I don't like and don't want to have to put up with, like don't like this, don't like that. What happens to your consciousness when you've done that is that you're only interested in things that you like. Now, this woman, for a job, she has to appear that she's a nice woman, and she has to appear that she's caring and that she cares about all people in society, even homeless people. But she doesn't, because she's about to make them into criminals. She's admitted they're victims, right? Which a homeless person is a victim of not only society, right, circumstantial, and then their health. Now she's saying that if these people don't do these certain things, they're criminals. Now, really, that's what this phone's doing to me. I consented and submitted and accepted to consent to allow Neil Mohan and the platform to treat me however it wanted, and then I am disarming my rights. Although apparently if it really would account to harassment, then you can get the police, but the police aren't going to arrest Neil Mohan. They're not going to arrest any of the staff of YouTube for crimes, even if we consent. They've got us to consent, submit and accept certain things they're doing to us, but those things could in law still be judged by a court to be harassment under the Harassment Act. You can't submit and consent to harassment, or else, right, you could do that with your house, and then you could treat anyone how the hell you wanted in your house, regardless of the law, which means the law doesn't apply in your house, and then there's no point having law in houses, you know? It's actually training me to not tolerate things that I don't like or want. Now, really, the MPs are trying to legislate against things that they can't tolerate, right? But all these councillors and MPs are meant to be selfless. The model for selflessness actually writes off all the political parties, because you can't actually have a political party if you're selfless, because you're serving the electorate. The political party goes on the assumption that the majority of the electorate support certain policies that the political party put forward. So the MP and the councillor are only a political party member or have got policies based on if the electorate support them or not, right? So it's all illusional. Now, this woman, right, I am being actually conditioned and victimised, but I'm even getting deja vu with this. I'm sure I've said it before. I'm getting conditioned by this phone, and I've had to accept and consent this phone, and it's got an addictive property that I need to have this phone to find out what's going on and what's happening, right? Information. But in order to access that information for free, right, I have to get consented to this behaviours. Now, it's true that I could pay to get rid of ads, pay to go ad free, right? But even without ads, right, even if I don't pay, it's what are the ads doing to me? What are the effects on me, right? Well, they're harmful. That means to say that, I mean, would you have you can be abused, right? Would you have it so you can be abused unless you could afford not to be? So, like, what about the police? Some people find the police annoying. So if you could pay, then that means, effectively, aren't the MPs running on that principle with their privilege in Parliament decisions? Oh, the police can't get involved in our decisions in Parliament. Lucky us. Well, it'd be all right if the police didn't get involved in anything we were doing. Pay for the privilege. Like you pay for the privilege to get rid of, YouTube ads. It's affecting you. I don't think these things can be communicated to some of these people, even when you describe them, because I just don't think they've got the mental capacity and brain cells to understand it. There are certain, if you actually could do a controlled blind experiment on these people, if you were allowed to get these ministers and put them in certain situations and positions where you could kind of like Jeremy Beadle, some sort of example you could put them through, I think they could be taught it and learn it. But they're already in a greater experiment. All of the MPs now are already addicts and victims of the products and culture that these companies are knocking out, and the devices themselves. They're actually playing a part in it, but because they're also being affected and they've got these niches and niggles where, don't like this, don't like that, they themselves are also under the influence of this as well. And we've got to all figure out together and agree on what is going on in order to be able to solve it. At the moment, homeless people, right, are most definitely a victim of very horrible, nasty culture that a lot of us now are opposing. Like, Vobes, a lot of other channels, Russell Brand, a lot of them are opposing these cultures and these lifestyles that are being sold all around us on devices, installed on the streets. What's happening with JC Decor? You know what? It's meant to be our street, right? The liberty of the city is given to the people as well. Now, what the council have done is, through prosperity, all those companies have ripped all of the money out of us. Then they've lobbied the government. They've taken over the streets with their billboards in the middle of the pavement, with their advertisements and things in and about the furniture of the street, right? And the government have let them do that, sell products, make loads of money. But the actual citizens, the actual people, right? When they're victimised by this culture and the effects of those things, and they curl up in a ball and, they don't really know what to do anymore, then they're not victim anymore. This woman, this fascist woman, wants to make them into a criminal, not a victim, when her political party have designed and caused it. It's worse than that. Some lab rats have been treated better, and we're meant to be humans with intelligence who can speak and talk. Yet now in Scotland, if lab rats get poked, they're not allowed to make certain noises in response, according to the Scottish Government. I could go into more. detail. And all the charity shops that are filled up with junk, which are meant to be selling that junk to help people, all those premises, really, she's about to go into people smelling and the smell of people, yet they blocked off public toilets so people had to pay to get into them. Homeless people don't have any money. They can't go into the toilets to wash themselves. And then they came up with that ridiculous idea of those stand-up toilets where you could just stand there and take a pee and have your backs to everyone. I thought that was rather odd when I went to London, I've never seen those before, when you just go and have a wee and stand up against the thing out in public when everyone was watching you. I thought that was a bit odd, even more odd than the countryside, So, if every single, they've got these missions when you can go to the cafe or whatever, if every single charity shop in England suddenly wasn't retail. Oh, Father Christmas, what's Christmas about? It's about the spirit of giving and doing favours and love and kindness and sharing. Well, no, now it's just a retail fest, go to Marks and Spencer's and fill your shopping trolley, right? That, unfortunately, this woman wants to go to Marks and Spencer's and for £2 million at homeless people, and then she wants to have a retail. Her idea of helping homeless people is firstly make them into criminals, but then, go give them presents and gifts from Marks and Spencer's, not when you go into a charity shop and it's just full of junk. What are you walking around in this place? All those old things and a lot of those, some of those things, people like old things and we're being forced to get rid of things for new things when there was nothing wrong with the old things for a start. And then a lot of the things shouldn't even exist, piles and piles and piles of DVD boxes. They never should exist. They are a result of a selfish rush culture of 007 films where, you get to spend, like Liz Truss on a podium in front of the sponsorship board. It's just bad culture. And it's filling, and then they've got to sell all those things that people give away because they don't want them, hoping someone else wants them to make some money for charity so then they can go help someone else. Whereas people are giving money to charities anyway without having to shift on their, surplus toxic products of society that are in excess and were impatiently made because they just couldn't wait for the CD player to come, for the MP3 player to come along. What about washrooms? For a start, to solve this problem with smells and homeless people, why don't they have free showers? Oh, we can't have those because then it would be a health hazard, But well, no, you're saying the smells are a health hazard. If they didn't smell, it wouldn't be a health hazard, It's not give free Veruca socks out with your face masks. They could have places, people go into hospitals, and get washed and things like that, and there's all different people mixing around. So, for a start, if every charity shop in London was some kind of wash place where people could get washed, as well as, getting something to eat, or next door, 2-in-1, wash place and something else next to it. But I don't think that these missionary places with the cafe is necessarily the solution. We've all got those food banks, but food banks are full of food that other people buy in excess. It's promoting businesses to make more profits and make more food and make more money go to the rich. I think that the problem with the homeless people is this. They don't like the culture that is being manufactured and knocked out by the Tories. And I don't either, but they're forcing on us. The council are actually starting to erect and construct it around here. Now, if I don't want to look at or smell or hear the things that this woman's party is actually building here. The designs and construction of what her party is currently knocking out on the conveyor belt is upsetting me. And I'm not homeless. I don't want to go out of the home because and I wouldn't have been that bothered if they hadn't purposely gone out and targeted all the things I liked. They got a pipette drop plate, and they got the pipette and they dripped it on precisely the things that I like, and then killed them dead. And then everything else I was indifferent about, then now I'm just pissed off. You know, if we can't have the things that we like, what can we have? And then they're starting to build things that we really don't like. And I don't want to look at it. I don't want to look, smell, or hear it, right? But this woman, she's got everything and more of the whole city of London, right? And her new innovation and technology. What she doesn't like is every little thing that she doesn't like, right? We can't even have the thing, out of everything we don't like, we can't even have the things that we like. But these people are flipped, right? They want absolutely the whole world to go exactly as they want, right? Everything they want, and every little thing they don't like these homeless people on the pavement, they want to erase them, even though they actually are manufacturing them and creating them through their culture, which they don't understand, right? And to solve it, they throw more money at it. Oh, we're not giving them enough food, right? We're not giving them enough food banks. We're not giving them enough cafes. We're not giving them enough lodgings. But apparently, according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's the culture that has put them out on the streets. You know, they don't. A lot of people leave their families or leave society because they don't actually like what is being done to it. And and how you stop that is supposedly through voting or through politics or petitions, which is joke. There are people who aren't homeless. There are people who have got support networks, and there are people on even groups on the internet, and they are actively trying to stop these councils doing things and failing. There are people petitioning the petitions committee. There are people getting 400,000 signatures to Parliament, and you can't even get rid of 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs when you do it lawfully, right? And then this woman wants to get elected when she can't serve in government without being selfless, indifferent for her electorate, when actually the political party headquarters has no jurisdiction, because it can't exist. Government people have to be selfless. So therefore, their party only exists if the voters exist. A party headquarters with a set of policies to get the government to do this or that can't exist, because it can only exist if an electorate support it. And all of the electorate don't support it in everything, and only half of the electorate come out to vote. What about the other electorate who don't like all the things that are going on? These political party headquarters are running on pure ether. They're actually getting their ministers to make decisions based on a party that the party headquarters, right, can't actually exist. It can't have a political effect, because as people are getting elected into the government, they're going poof, poof, poof. They're going selfless. As they become a candidate and as they get elected, poof, 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 their self, their conscience is dissolving. And when they're serving, they've got to serve the actual people who voted in the electorate. Now, as long as there's a majority of a political party, but for every other decision you get through the council or through government, actually what you find is these people are voting for a party, but they don't actually agree with it on everything. In fact, there are people who have got opinions who didn't vote, who don't want the council to do certain things, who have got a right through objection, complaint, and petition. So what is actually happening in the government at the moment is they're getting away doing pretty much everything with literally less than half of the consent of the country, and then people who are going by proper methods to stop them are getting undermined and derailed and obstructed, as we can see by the Welsh government at the moment. And look at the Stonehenge Tunnel. You know, we're being hijacked by criminals who aren't acting selflessly, because they're not acting selflessly. That means that they can actually be removed and prosecuted for breach of policy. You know.
Should people be arrested if they smell?
Into this. Well, no, people should not be arrested just if they smell. But of course, what we'll be doing is be considering any legislation. But okay, the most important thing is what we're doing, £2 billion to make sure that we help.
It's more money. You don't need money. Charities have got so much money already, but they're not doing anything with it except kind of being retail outlets. People give money to charities, and what they did is they set up these shops, and they got these shops, and they thought, okay, like, I know that they've got loads of operations as well, that they do their actual work, but those shops, right, it's just like a retail premise. And I know that that's like a way for them to get more income in for donations, but people donate to those charities anyway, you know? And a lot of the work that charities do, right, is not like literally on the street, you know? But if the presence of the charities, right, if the presence of the charities, the main visible part of the charity's presence is on the street, right, is the shop where you retail and buy things. But really, a lot of these charities need places where people can get help and get sorted out. You know, it doesn't, like, church missions and places like that aren't as visible. I don't even think that having a wash place, even if the government put wash places everywhere, it would even help, because these people are psychologically being pushed down and under and trampled on by the conservative lifestyle. And not everyone likes the conservative lifestyle. Not everyone likes the billboards taking over the streets. You know, why haven't they, you know, the street now seems to be designed to be anti-human. You know, you got to sit a proper way. You know, you can't sit on the floor. You know, but yeah, it's commercial. It's like become a market. At one point, they were only allowed to hold certain markets anyway in the city on certain times. You know, at certain places at certain times. Now it's just one. It's one retail fest. Life is not retail. You know, life is not retail. Really, you know, on Star Trek, which I really don't like, they don't even have a shop. You know, they've got a vendor. You know, it just materializes. If you didn't have such thing as even Amazon, you know, so there wasn't even any shops or shop fronts, you know, I don't know what the Tories would do, firstly, because they like the lifestyle of browsing and looking through the windows and going in and looking at objects and things, but they don't like going around looking at objects and people and picking them up and examining them anymore, particularly if they're tramps, you know. The fact that it's like return to Oz, you know, where all your friends have been turned into objects, you know. No matter how many nursery schools, you know, this woman goes to, until children have actually, you know, they should go on school trips, you know, to be homeless for a while, to know what it's like, you know, to see how people treat them different. That would be something. But a lot of us are getting mistreated now on Facebook groups when there's actually a law in place. What they're doing is criminal. Many Facebook admins and moderators are doing criminal behaviour against the Public Meetings Act, and it's because they've been given power and buttons, and anything that anyone says that they don't like, they can just get rid of it. And that's effectively what this woman's doing with these homeless people on the street, and that's victims. I am actually getting victimised on groups, even when I'm trying to help or do something really, really intelligent, when you've got a legal right and they're criminal. And then YouTube are getting given all these, you know, a consent, submit, accept. And then they're doing these behaviours and treatments through adverts that are really driving me nuts. You know, if you could see the effects these adverts are having on people who can't afford to pay to get rid of the adverts, it's mistreatment. It's like consent, submit and accept to this treatment. And then they just condition you to not like anything and not be tolerant of anything. And then you end up being like this woman here, but instead of it being, you know, with your buttons on your device or in your Facebook group, you're in government. And the last thing we want are these people in Facebook groups who are intolerant of anything and can't put up with anything and not interested in understanding anything, but being actually in government with power to make and change laws rather than just faffing around on their phone. What you've actually got is they're faffing around with the law, like this, don't like that, as if they're pushing like buttons on their phone after they've been given those powers, but also because, the devices are being cunningly manipulated to, like, get us riled up. So otherwise, if we wouldn't have been treated like that or forced into it, we wouldn't have been disliking these things as much, and we wouldn't be as kind of like reactive and responsive, and that's the thing. A lot of it is quite easy to work out and understand and observe, right? And all these departments in government they've got with all these graduate students and all these, like she said, £2 million funding thrown at people, new Department of Innovation and Technology. We don't need money thrown at it. We actually need the people who have got the solutions and ideas and who can understand it to be able to be the ones who are implementing the solutions and affecting the legislation. And we don't want to be targeting the legislation at homeless people. The legislation needs to be targeted at these big platforms that are affecting the whole consciousness and attitude of people around the country. There's a wave of influencer behaviour swept across the nation. There was no legislation put in place to stop it. Now everyone's bickering and fighting and out on the streets protesting, right? And they're actually then getting blamed for it. All of these problems could have been put through a petitions committee and gone to the vote. But what they did is these political parties didn't want to be selfless once they get elected. They wanted to assume Starfleet command from political party headquarters, Tory headquarters and Labour headquarters, which is impossible. It's impossible in law for any selfless serving minister who answers to their electorate to open their mouth or act in government from a political party headquarters, because it's not an electorate and it's not an electorate for a council or ministers. Therefore, it's failure to act selflessly when you can understand and see that model of influence in effect. And they've been blocking out everyone who in local areas goes by ballot or other means to try and stop what they're doing. It is criminal. It is criminal. I'm praying to God that someone, whether it is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or someone else, does something about this effect of these devices over people's kindness, patience, tolerance, and behaviour, because the adverts and the consent, submit, accept, we're actually being governed. We are being governed by these platforms. Have got more power over culture and behaviour now than the government. The government don't have much power and control. They've nurtured this kind of like consumer city culture, and some people have they don't like it. You can't, and if you can't afford to move away, where do you end up? Upsetting a doorway. And once the police stop calling people victims and say they're criminals, then there are no victims left. There are only criminals to apprehend, and then they're apprehending everyone. I've said it a million times so far, and this law creates, transforms victims into criminals, and it's the Conservatives who are manufacturing victims through their businesses, colleagues, policies and government. And JC Decaux is the king. JC Decaux, when a freaking billboard, when a freaking advertising board that's not even one that's going to try to get the law changed, when a Chanel freaking billboard in London is more important to have space on the pavement than a citizen of the city who is victimised by that company and culture and doesn't even have a political say in it because the petitions committee just rejected 8 of his petitions, even though he's legally entitled to run them because they weren't fit enough because, he hasn't even got a pen anymore. They're not fit to be received. I'm not surprised, The citizens aren't fit to be received anymore. And I think that half of the citizens aren't fit to be received because they don't go turn up at the polling station to vote. Therefore, because they don't like these MPs and what they're doing to the country, so they don't go vote. So what these people are doing is only the people who do vote, yet selflessly serving councillors and MPs are sitting and changing laws, but blocking the objections in council and in through petition. Like, Drakeford's doing now in Wales. It's criminal. I can't do with how nice this woman is. She's not nice, right? If I walk up to someone and say, "Hello, sir, how are you today? Oh, I love children. Yes, I'd love to give £1 billion to charity," and then proceed to say, "Oh, but by the way, everything you do is now criminal. Consent, submit, accept are now a criminal." It's like what Russell Brand says. These people sound nice. They sound nice. They act nice. They pretend to be nice, but they're not nice because the things that they're doing to us are harmful. They're harmful, and they are they're transforming citizens into secondary objects other than their furniture and apparatus, and they want to throw more money at it, more products, more food, stuff them full of more. It's like stuffing a turkey, I do have more complicated and technical points and understandings to it. It is a lot more technical and complicated, and I don't think that any experiments at the moment from universities, any controlled blind experiments coming out of any university in this country that has got £2 million worth of funding is not solving it, because this woman wants to solve it by transforming victims into criminals. Why aren't the universities saying treat citizens like citizens, not like objects? Make citizens more important than objects. Extinction Rebellion glued themselves to the road. Oh, the road's more important than the people. Extinction Rebellion pulled up a bench or knocked down a billboard. They must be criminals. That means that objects are more important than people. But the objects are all the companies' objects that they've taken over. And then after they've transformed everyone into homeless people, like in Los Angeles, then all the companies themselves just crumble. The companies crumble. Why? Because even they've been sucked up by Jeff Bezos, who sucked all the business out of the town in Los Angeles, out of the city, sucked it all up into Amazon, so it's all done online. And then even the premises that the tramps were sleeping in the doorway of, now even they are all boarded up and falling to pieces. Seriously, if these people put any more legislation through, we're in trouble. We need to press the stop button on them. We need to press stop, right? And we need to get some democracy, some equal opinions on what is happening, not while it's continuing to roll over and tick on, not while it's rolling over and ticking on. We actually need to stop, and not like in lockdown when they carry on constructing. That Charter of London I read, they banned building in London because of smallpox. They banned any more houses from being built because of smallpox, right? Houses are being built, but homeless people are not getting houses, and other houses are getting ruined. We seriously need to stop and think, and all the Scottish seem to want to do is ban people from speaking their mind.
criminalise people if they find
street
themselves
and
sleeping rough. It's not a lifestyle choice, despite what Suella Braverman says.
No, it's not a lifestyle choice. Normally people have, had a lot of hardship before they got to that point. And, I've spoken to many people in that situation. Usually they'll...
Well, it's not just hardship. You're saying hardship. What does that mean? Hardship. Well, actually, no. Actually, the Conservative Party, mainly their businesses and enterprises, have changed prices so people can't afford them, right? And if that's not criminal, then I don't know what is. It's not hardship. It's by design. These people are actually... the Conservative Party are shedding people. They're prioritising things and objects that they like, and they don't like people anymore. And then they're just saying, "Oh, it's a bit of hardship," but it's actually not. It's not even. It's actually, it's actually. I think it's difficult to say intended, but it's reckless. There needs the only crime we need. They're not criminalising what she's saying hardship, right? But the word is victims. They're victims, right? And what's happening is, what's causing them to be like that? Who is the offender? When you've got a victim, you need an offender. But all the things that are found to be and agreed to be causing these people to end up like that are not being criminalised. Why? Because they're making money out of it and a profit out of it. And because it's good for someone else. What's good for someone else is bad for another person sometimes. Now, that is criminal. When a thief steals something, it's good for him if he steals it, but bad for the victim as at loss. Now, she doesn't want to admit that. She's umming and ahhing about, hardship, right? What she won't do is she will not actually criminalise the people who are causing the people to end up homeless. Because it's too big. It's too big because, in fact, it is her and her colleagues who are doing that. And it is the culture they've manufactured and the current economy and the current products. The city, the surroundings are actually harming them. And unless she calls it out and actually starts making some laws against that, then what's happening is there is an effect that is turning people into victims, yet we can't stop it. So it's like a unstoppable criminal, and that's when the Tories really need to be called out.
They'll have suffered some kind of breakdown, or they'll be addicted to something, and they need support and help into homes. However, it is still not acceptable.
Well, I don't think it's as easy as support and help into homes, because it's the culture. They're not just going away from a home, because I'm in a home now. I have a home and a family. And I am turning away from all these things that they're doing out in town, and I don't want to even go there. So this woman has got a corrosive culture. And what happens, all we have to do with what this woman is continuing on with is look at that Los Angeles model. And they will actually even sacrifice their own shops. First you sacrifice the people, and they'll end up homeless. Then even their own Marks and Spencers and fancy shops, when those shops aren't serving them and making money for them, then they just leave them to run down. And then they say, we'll work from home now from our fancy mansion or farm, and then we'll just sell through Jeff Bezos instead. So not only are they saying screw the people, it's proved that they'll actually abandon their own city. They'll abandon their own shops and city for greed and for more profit when it's convenient to them. So really, they actually just do not care. They couldn't give a monkeys. As long as she's at a nursery school, being Secretary of State for Education and playing with nice little 4-year-old kids and doing finger painting and pretending to solve the world's troubles with throwing, oh, it's all right if I can throw £2 million at something. But really, she just doesn't care. And that's what you get on the Facebook groups when they just block you. And that's even when they're in trouble and they want to try to save something and you put the answer or solution on the table, and if they either A, don't understand it, or B, slightly get annoyed with it, yeah, when you've A, broken no law, and B, not even broken their outright rules, they just don't like it, and that's a whim, and that's why you have to take oaths in court, like, you know, you're meant to be competent, you're meant to swear the truth, not just on your whim, right? And you've got to abide by the law. And these women don't want to. All they want to do is what they want to do. It's like some kind of pageant. It's like a Tory. It's a political pageant. And this actual news program, as far as I'm concerned, is a political pageant. And this woman is not acting selflessly. She can't be acting on her electorate because half of the electorate didn't turn up to vote, right? And of the ones who did, not all of the ones who voted for her party agree on what she's doing. So I don't know how she can turn up in Parliament and act selflessly. She can't. And if she's getting instructions from the Conservative Party headquarters, that's not a electorate. So that's actually illegal. I've actually worked this out now that receiving any instructions or directions from a political party headquarters to government is a criminal offence. It's illegal because the elected members aren't acting selflessly on behalf of their constituents. So the whole thing is totally corrupt. And what they're doing is they've blocked the petitions committee up and they're rejecting stuff and they're rejecting objections in the council and just building what they want. It's criminal. I don't care how nice this woman appears to be. It is fascism. She is a fascist woman, and she doesn't even understand properly. She doesn't even understand it all properly anyway. And a lot of her party are encouraging more criminal behaviour. They're doing it on the platforms. They plan to do this, and they plan to get us to block and ban each other so we can actually. We don't have the law and enforcement which is required to have a fully operating action. So the action can't even cave in and fail itself because people are getting blocked and obstructed from it when it needs to have security. It needs to be able to hold itself up and people participate and contribute and power it forward. Or it will shed valuable information and input and it won't succeed. It's got to be able to hold itself up despite arguments. And they've been blocking and obstructing that, you know.
People are threatening, or there was some talk of, sort of aggressively begging.
But what is aggression? There's aggression in Parliament. You know, it's... For starters, right, it's a whole of a conversation. It means that another being or human is emitting a noise or doing something in a manner which she does not like herself, right? I don't like the whole way the government are conducting and what they're emitting, and it is harmful to other people, right? That's for start. Right? It's easy for her to switch people off or stamp them out or make them suddenly criminal if she doesn't like the sound they're making. They had that guy on with Rishi Sunak on GB News actually not too long ago, and he stood there and listened to that guy. And they made him listen to him. You know, she's wanting to try and put a stop to that. And he ended up being on Dr. John Campbell a bit after. I think it was a day after or 2 days after or something. It's intolerance. It's also comes down to style. They also don't like the travelling culture, and some people choose to sleep outside. It's ironic that if you go out into these people, sell and buy tents, and they go camping. So in some countries, you don't even need a tent, If you're a jolly old bunch and you want to go to the Lake District and it's the summer, you might go camp out by a river or a stream and then end up sleeping out under the stars. We can't even go to our own ancient site now, There's actually nothing wrong with sleeping outside as long as you're not going to steal anything from anyone. It is the wrong way for civilization to go. On top of that, with the fact that a lot of the choices that people are making is because they've got no option. They just didn't choose to go out and sleep under the stars one time because they wanted to. It's all wrong, It needs explaining to them. And if people get annoyed or upset during that, there are special groups that people have actually where they have under the NHS where people go and sometimes make up their own gobbledygook language or even shout, and people with Tourette's are excused from shouting out swear words because it's a medical condition. But how about whether it's someone's belief, religious belief, or whether it's because it's just their style, there are certain styles in movies people go to watch while they're still showing films at cinemas where they've got swearing in and it's 18 and you can swear and they can even portray these scenes. Then it's got to be acceptable in real life to do it if you can go and act it. Otherwise, actors can do things that normal people can't do because they feel that way. And why would you act it out in a film is because someone they're pretending or playing to be feels like that. She's just wrong. She's wrong. I wouldn't give her a qualification in school. I wouldn't give her a qualification in school. And because of that, she wouldn't get a job in government. I don't know how she's got elected by members of the electorate. She was put up as a candidate by her party, a party that can't have a direct control from its centre base to government because MPs are selfless and they have to serve their constituents who vote for them. Therefore, any political party communication from headquarters, it can't exist. It can't exist because of the selflessness policy. And the electoral system it's corrupted from Magna Carta and from way beyond due to lack of intelligence and due to presumption and due to peer influence and due to another amount of factors which are retarded in intelligence. And it's all commercial consumerism, frontage, or throwing £2 million at this or that, or it's a superficial kind of play school frontage of competence and of adulthood, which is actually causing all of the excesses and greeds of the country. We've got to get a new legitimate system of voting that removes these people from government permanently and puts in some kind of lawful system gone about through lawful due process that we can all agree on that removes these women from government because they're not qualified. They aren't qualified to be making decisions at that level of governance of a country,
cash points, etc. So that's, you do have to get the balance and the line right.
Why then?
Well, no, you don't have to get the balance and the line right. You have to get the job right. You have to get understanding right. You have to, before you do anything, you've got to understand what you're talking about. And you've got to even understand what the problem is and what's happening. And then you've got to have a fair idea of how to solve it and not just, you happen to be the person who was elected, so therefore, by consequence, it just happens to be you that's making the decisions in legislation. That is a very sad situation to be in, right? Because it means that someone who is consequentially in government, right, is making decisions of the country, which is a terrible position to be in, particularly when we've got these technologies now which, if you're going to have a billboard on the street by JC which is corporate and commercial, and that billboard and any damage to it is more important than any person on the street who is a victim and homeless, and you're going to turn them into a criminal, right? When you drive around a JC advertising board there, what's more important than a person, right? Then you're really on a bad model for government. And secondly, you know, how you even ended up in government to make those decisions against a person who is homeless, right? And then you would criminalise that person when half of your entire electorate of an area didn't even vote for you to have the privilege of that position, only a lot smaller minority. Yet then you dare go and, you know, make people who are victims into criminals and make them more important than objects on the street, which shouldn't even be on the street anyway. You know, it's a sad and tragic position to be in.
Sorry, Secretary of State. It's much easier when you're in the studio, but we're almost out of time. You are down the line. There is a slight delay. Why does the bill then say that rough sleepers might be considered a nuisance if there's an excessive smell? How ridiculous, some might say, to put that in the bill.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at that detail of it, but I mean, I guess the word is excessive, and I don't know what they mean there. But
I don't think they could legislate against that unless the government actually had provided some kind of wash facilities, because they ended up in London making those toilets that you can just go stand up and have a wee, and I'd never seen those before. I thought they were a joke when I first saw them. I doubt you could get away with legislating against smell unless they provided public facilities to get washed that were free and you didn't have to pay to go into, because that means that if another person drives past on a cart or on a bus and splashes you from a water puddle in London and you smell because of someone else, right, then it's your fault. And, you know, if they don't provide somewhere to get clean for free of charge, without being charged money for it, then they're actually criminalising you again when it's not your fault. Now, maybe in the law they might make it so, you know, if someone else, you know, drove past you and splashed you or whatever, but it's still the principle, you know. And also, the thing is that being too clean now, we've proved that's causing a lot of skin problems. A lot of skin problems and a lot of acne and a lot of rashes are caused because of the cosmetics that they're selling and a lot of the soaps. So when you're cleaning yourself, you might not smell, but you're getting rashes and things like that, which are being caused by the products that they're actually allowing to be legally, lawfully advertised in the streets. So when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gets in, he's going to wipe the floor with a lot of the entire government. I would go for prison sentences. I would go to get them all impeached, and that's not speaking far out. I'm seriously, if any of them have got investments or shares in those cosmetic companies that are causing rashes, and then if they're therefore forcing people to use those products to stop smelling, but it's causing another disease or rash, and they've legislated again, so they've got to use, you know, products, and they're not offering anywhere to get clean. You know, what about chlorine in the water could be causing rashes on people? I'm going for like complete, you know, like when some of those businesses, just because their profits are being harmed, they're suing the government. I'm going on that level, but I'm not going enough for civil suit of suing. I think it's criminal. I think it's a corrupt and illegal practice, and it's also professional negligence. Some of these people are not. They're dangerous in government. It is effectively like having a small child in the government who sounds like an adult. They sound like an adult, but really they're a small child. You know, particularly when it comes to Patel and Sunak and Suella Braverman and people like that. They need to be taught and educated that what they're doing and what they're thinking about is wrong. It is wrong.
It's really about making sure that we support people, but also we make sure that people feel safe on our streets. And
well, no, they're victimised. They're actually victims, and you're creating victims, and then the consequences of that you're finding annoying, and some people find annoying. But what people find it annoying? Usually people who are less tolerant and don't understand why those people are like that, and have actually caused it. Probably reps going around selling perfume, and then someone's got a rash on their skin, so they don't want to wash, so they end up smelling, and then that person gets the privilege of calling that other person a criminal when they actually sold them products, made money out of them, and caused a rash. I'm sorry, but her entire philosophy in life and her entire culture is a corrupt and very nasty set of people. And none of these people were tolerated before. It's the major platforms and smartphone devices and the new accept, submit, consent to superiority, and the new intolerance culture through devices, like, don't like. She's basically putting the thumbs down. Don't like that. That person's a victim. Someone's victimised them. Someone's even possibly broke the law and caused that against them. But I don't like it. Thumbs down. And effectively, she's like a woman on a Facebook group who herself is breaking the law. It's like a woman on a Facebook group who's breaking the law of the Public Meetings Act, so that means that she's a criminal, but yet she's saying that someone else is doing something wrong, and then she's giving a thumbs down button to eject them like a Graham Norton ejection seat. And she even made rules up that only her own policy and guidelines, and you didn't even break any of them, and then she's still coming up with things that she doesn't like anymore, and then still throwing you out even though they're not in the written rules. And that's what Suella Braverman and Priti Patel are like. And that's why I absolutely, completely condemn them. And according to John Campbell, a lot of those people are getting ill just by being in this country anyway, let alone covering themselves with chlorine or scrubbing their dirt off their skin, and it's giving them acne and rashes from the chemicals in the products, right? A lot of these people are vitamin D deficient just from being in our country, and that's a scientific fact. So, I'm starting to, who are these people? Who do they think they are? I've had enough of them. I think we need to we need to get doctors, we need to get scientists like Campbell and his research team, like with vitamin D. The government needs to be prosecuted. They're not immune, actually. The government aren't immune. They can be prosecuted by their equals, and they aren't being, because at some point in England, they gave up prosecuting each other because they decided just to let each other have the privilege of resigning, because they wanted to stop fighting amongst themselves. But it's causing a lot of harm now. It's causing a lot of damage to people and to society and to the kindness of England. People are being abused and victimized by companies, and then they're instead of being they don't want to even, they're not worthy enough of being a victim anymore. People like Andrew Bridgen and George Galloway and Jeremy Corbyn, they need to, they must use the law against these people, because I don't think they've got the capacity to learn either. I just don't think they've got the ability to learn. They will say, it's like, Parliament burning down was not an accident. Parliament burning down was no accident. It was devised and planned. And, all those in Los Angeles, all those expensive fancy shop fronts to all the major brands, they just left them. What they did is, like, they just cast them aside. They finished playing with the toys, and even this, they'll burn down the city. they'll burn down Parliament. And this is not even terrorist. This is like the King, William. This is like Sir Robert Peel. Sir Robert Peel gave the order to set those fires under Parliament going, right? And he gave the order to set them on fire. And if that wasn't liability for that fire, I don't know what was. These people, they self-harm. And if they can't have something, no one can have it. And as soon as something doesn't serve them anymore, they just chuck it. They just get rid of it. Like, you know, all those Los Angeles shops and everyone, like, fuck everyone else. Fuck all those homeless people. Oh, what's happening? Why are they all homeless? Let's find out. Oh, yeah, because we made them into homeless people. You know, we did it. We designed them. They're victims. Oh, well, now they're all criminals if they lay down on the bench and try to go to sleep. I'm sorry, but this woman, no matter what good intentions she purports to have, she is not safe or capable in the position. She probably is capable and competent to teach primary school kids, and she should be probably, teaching them to learn what it's like to be homeless, and then they could be more understanding and tolerable of them. This woman needs to be sent to a primary school, given a full-time job as a primary school teacher, and then on Halloween, instead of going trick-or-treating and stuffing her face with sweets, they need to dress as orphans and go lie in a street doorway and then see how they're treated by posh fancy toffs who walk past, who won't even answer them or sign a petition or question when they ask, and then they will know the value of society and how people are being treated by these people. That's what this woman needs to do, not toff around in the Secretary of State position in a Department of Government when she really hasn't got a clue what she's doing. When any given moment, someone could push a button and blow, set Parliament on fire. Likely one of the members already established who gave the instructions for it, not me. Seeing though that it's highly likely and suggestive that it was Sir Robert Peel and the King who burned Parliament down, not terrorists. So if you want to figure out 77th Brigade how to solve that problem, then you've got me in a riddle, because 77th Brigade at the time equivalent probably would have been the ones turning the blind eye and not bringing Sir Robert Peel to account for it. That's where we're at with it. So I'm warning the armed forces now, and MI5 and MI6 and the rest of them, you're covering up for the criminals. You are facilitating crime in order for criminals to prosper, and then victims are then being legislated as to be rewritten to be criminals. So you get the word victim, and then you rewrite it so no, this is now a criminal, right? So I don't know how the police can carry on using the term victim, because shortly that term will be non-existent. There will only be criminals, those who do not comply with the laws of these supremacists.